Discover the incredible journey of Marfa Sobakina, 15 days that changed everything forever. In the rusted heart of Ohio, where factory smokestacks once belched hope into the sky, Marfa Sobakina awakened before dawn, the quiet of her home broken only by the rustling of her children sleeping. She was a single mother of 3, shoulders burdened by the weight of unpaid bills and deferred dreams. Each day, she donned her armor, a faded work uniform, and donned a smile for her kids, driving them to school before heading to a factory that threatened to close its doors. Her heart ached, yet resilience coursed through her veins. Neighbors were there too, offering cheap childcare and the occasional bag of groceries, echoing the very spirit that built this town. Marfa felt that flicker of community, that small light in the growing darkness of her worries. Still, shadows loomed large, especially the rift with her father. Once a proud war veteran, he held traditional values in firm grasp, while Marfa's fierce independence often felt like a foreign rebellion. Their love had splintered over unspoken grievances, and each tense conversation left her hollow. But this night was different. Town hall buzzed with anticipation as citizens gathered for a meeting about the factory closure, an event that could change everything. Marfa felt a surge of adrenaline, a spark of hope igniting within. She listened as her pleas were drowned out by the drone of corporate jargon, their empty promises echoing like distant thunder. Frustrated and desperate, her heart raced until she thought it might burst. Just as she was about to retreat, her gaze swept across the room. Eyes locked with those of her neighbors, strangers turned confidants, she felt the palpable warmth of solidarity. It set her soul ablaze, igniting a fire she had nearly resigned to ashes. Today wasn't just about her family, it was about a whole community fighting for survival, dignity, and hope. "I'm not backing down," Marfa cried, her voice rising above the clamor. It struck a chord, vibrating against the very walls of their shared despair. Marfa began organizing a grassroots movement, seeking not just to save the factory but to reclaim their collective power. Workers' rights and fair wages became her rallying cry, each word reverberating with the heartbeat of her town. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed, and the movement gained momentum, bubbling like a fresh spring just beneath the surface. Media attention poured in, and Marfa felt the weight of her community's expectations. With each protest, she stood before cameras and crowds, her voice a steady whip against the wind. Yet in the midst of this newfound power, her heart remained heavy with the thought of her father, whose disapproval lingered like smoke. Then came the night of the grand protest. Marfa stood at the front, holding a handmade sign, her eyes scanning the crowd. They locked with her father's piercing gaze. The weight of their shared history hung between them, their love buried under years of misunderstandings. As the crowd cheered, Marfa felt the air thicken with unsaid words. Would she step forward and invite him into this whirlwind of change? Would they find a way to bridge their divide, or was this confrontation merely a deeper fracture in their bond? Heart racing, she took a deep breath, the cacophony of voices around her swelling with energy. "Dad," she whispered, words caught in her throat. All of her dreams, all of her fear, all of her hope hung in the balance as she braced for what could finally change. Everything. Marfa's heart hammering, she felt the eyes of the crowd shift towards her father as if pulling him into the moment. For those precious seconds, everything fell silent, the distant noise of protest just a muted hum against the thunder of her own heartbeat. The sign in her hand felt heavy as lead, her fingers trembling. She opened her mouth again, the hope in her chest pushing her words out like a desperate plea. "Dad, I know you don't agree with my fight," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "But this isn't just about saving our jobs. It's about our future. It's about my kids and their kids. don't you see?" Her father's eyes narrowed, revealing the struggle within. Marfa could feel the weight of years behind that gaze, memories of her fierce independence echoing too loudly in his mind. Frustration mixed with a deep, unshakable love had carved wrinkles into his face and a hard edge to his voice when he spoke. "I've always taught you to work hard, to make your own way," he finally shouted back, his voice thick with emotion. "But challenging authority is not the way. It's too risky, Marfa. You could lose everything. Everything is already at stake, Dad." She countered, her tears blending with the drops of rain now beginning to fall. "We're fighting for the dignity that comes with a fair wage. We're fighting for each other. You taught me to stand up for what matters, didn't you?" The crowd erupted with cheers, waves of energy pulsating through their bodies, awakening something buried deep inside her father. Marfa watched as his expression shifted from anger to confusion, then finally a glimmer of understanding. She could feel the crack in their shared silence widening, inviting him in. But just then, a voice pierced through the air, one rippling with authority. "This is not the time for family drama. We're here for change." A local journalist rushed to the forefront, capturing the tension like it was a live wire. Suddenly the spotlight spun away from Marfa and her father, reflecting the larger fight around them. Neighbors were chanting, unfurling vibrant banners, demanding justice and recognition from the factory owners. The sense of urgency spilled out into the streets, wrapping around them all like a banner of newfound strength. Marfa felt the rising tide of hope and frustration collide in her chest. She could not let go of the moment with her father, nor could she ignore the call of her community. She stepped back, trying to reground herself as adrenaline surged through her veins. The clash of feelings made it hard to breathe between the love for her father and the growing fire in her belly to fight for every worker standing beside her. Finally gathering her thoughts, she pivoted. "I love you, Dad," Marfa shouted above the swell of voices. "But I won't let fear control us. Let us fight together." There was an electricity in her call, something raw and palpable. As if caught in a moment of fate, Marfa watched her father's expression soften. It was as though the years of hurt simply faded, replaced by the urgent beat of a shared determination. But would he step forward, or retreat to the shadows of tradition once more? The crowd surged around her, a living entity of connection and courage. She turned, captivated by the energy encapsulating everyone's hopes. Then her eyes locked onto her father, desperately waiting for a sign, for understanding, for a chance to heal. In that moment, another figure emerged at the edge of the protest, drawing every gaze. A man in crisp business attire, eyes downcast, was approaching, his expression unreadable. What did he hold? Only time would tell if it was an olive branch or the final nail in their coffin. As Marfa's heart thudded, she realized they were on the precipice of change and everything was about to change once more. The man moved through the sea of chanting voices like a ship in turbulent waters. Each step was careful, deliberate. Marfa's stomach twisted as she watched. There was something unnerving about the way he held his briefcase tight against his side, as if it contained the weight of all their hopes and fears. "Who is that?" The question buzzed through the crowd, casting rippling waves of anxiety. Marfa tried to cut through the noise, her own heart racing as she sought answers in the faces around her. Eyes darted between the stranger and her father, who was now standing stiffly, arms crossed, a guardian against an unknown threat. "Watch him!" someone shouted. Others echoed the sentiment, an undercurrent of suspicion sweeping through the throng. Marfa took a step forward, propelled by a mix of curiosity and dread. Her father's figure loomed closer behind her, the silent protector she had always relied upon. She could feel his tension radiating like heat, but for this moment, she moved ahead, her fingers gripping the sign as if it were a lifeline. "Is he here to negotiate?" whispered a friend beside her. "Or to intimidate us?" "Maybe both," Marfa replied, scanning the gap between them and the man. The atmosphere thickened, the sweet scent of rain mingled with the electric energy of the crowd, creating a cocktail of hope and anxiety. As he reached the front, the man stopped, lifting his gaze to meet Marfa's. In that moment, the world around them faded, and it felt as if time stood still. For several heartbeats, neither moved. Then slowly, he began to speak. "This," he started, his voice steady, but edged with hesitation, "is not what I expected." His eyes softened slightly as they swept over the crowd. For a brief instant, there was a flicker of something: recognition. Understanding. "Who sent you?" someone yelled, anger rippling in the air. Marfa stepped forward, emboldened. "We're tired of being ignored. What do you want here?" He took a breath, then opened the briefcase with slow deliberation. Inside lay papers, stacks of documents that whispered of power, authority, and perhaps, a way forward. Yet, there was a palpable tension as everyone held their breath, waiting for his next move. "I'm here to talk," he said finally, his voice cutting through the noise, transforming apprehension into uncertainty. "I want to understand what you're fighting for." His eyes flicked to her father, who stood calculating as if deciding whether this was an ambush. "And how we can find common ground." Marfa felt the weight of the moment. Her father shifted beside her, caught between his instincts and the glimmer of hope that began to ignite within the crowd. She turned to him, searching for a hint of agreement, a sign that perhaps they could align their worlds, however reluctantly. "What do you think, Dad?" Marfa asked, hopeful. "Is this how it begins?" Her father's eyes remained focused on the stranger, wrestling with doubt. "There's a lot at stake here, Marfa. Can we trust him?" The gathering crowd mirrored their uncertainty, murmurs shifting in a wave of uncertainty. They needed a leader, a voice to take them forward, but trust had to be earned, not just offered. "I don't know if we can," she admitted, feeling small against the shadow of her father's doubt and the man's imposing presence. "But we have to try. For all of us." Just then, in that electric silence, something snapped within her. "We can't stand still anymore. We need to move forward, Dad, together." As voices intensified, clamoring for clarity, her father's jaw tightened, thoughts churning as he weighed 1,000 possibilities. Marfa stepped closer to the man, adrenaline seeping into her every fiber. Would her father join her? Would he finally step into this moment of change alongside her? But before her father could respond, the whispers escalated, and a searing question rang out loud over the crowd: "What do you truly want from us?" The stakes had never been so clear. And as hearts raced with anticipation and apprehension, they all realized that this was just the beginning of a greater struggle, one that could change everything. Marfa took a deep breath, ready for whatever came next, knowing that the answer could change the trajectory of their lives forever. The man paused, the crowd's question hanging heavily in the air. His eyes flickered with something like empathy, but a flicker wasn't enough. Marfa's heart raced as she sensed the precarious balance between fear and hope. Everyone was leaning in, eyes wide, waiting for him to reveal himself, to justify his presence. "I want to help you," he said finally, the weight of the words echoing in the charged atmosphere. "But I need to know what you truly seek. It's time we talk about what you're fighting for." Marfa felt a surge of emotion. Help. It was a word that had been whispered in frustrations and dreams, yet she felt heavy doubt knotting in her stomach. "Help us with what?" someone asked, breaking the tense silence, voice thick with skepticism. "With more lies? More broken promises?" Marfa understood that frustration. Their community had suffered too long, neglected and pushed aside as if their struggles didn't matter. She turned to the man, feeling her voice strengthen. "We're desperate to be heard. We want a fair chance. My father, everyone here wants change. Real change. Change." He echoed, like a note played on an uncertain string. "Change doesn't happen without trust. You're fighting a system that has been entrenched for years. I can help bridge that gap, but I need your input. It starts from within." Her father shifted, his expression revealing 1,000 thoughts swirling behind his stoic facade. Marfa glanced back at him, searching for a clue, any sign that he might be warming to this stranger's intentions. "I may not know who you are," her father finally said, voice steady but tinged with a watchful caution, "but helping us means you take on our battles as your own. Are you really prepared for that?" "I've seen too many battles end in defeat," the man replied, folding his arms, the briefcase still clutched tightly. "But if you all agree to come together and voice your needs, I will take your cause to those that matter. We are not so different, you and I." A soft murmur spread through the crowd, a whisper of disbelief intertwined with hope. Marfa felt her resolve harden. "We don't just want to be a footnote in someone else's agenda. This is our home. Our lives." In the flickering light of the fading day, the gathering seemed to draw a collective breath. Their struggles were not just numbers in a report. They were names, faces, stories woven together in a shared tapestry of hardship. "What if we do this?" Another voice broke through, a woman with tears glistening in her eyes. "What if we share our stories? What if we don't just ask for change, but demand it?" Marfa felt a wave of determination swell within her. One voice could be a song, but a chorus? That was a movement. "Yes!" she exclaimed, the pulse of excitement shaking her tone. "No more silence. We can share who we are, our dreams, our fears. This isn't just about policy, it's about us. It's so much bigger." The man nodded, a flicker of respect crossing his features. Marfa could see a shift in the crowd, an energy igniting like a spark catching fire. As stories began to unfold, the atmosphere thickened with emotion. Woven through pain were threads of resilience, strength shining through. Each voice layered upon the next felt like a revolutionary anthem. But in that rush of fervor, Marfa caught a glimpse of her father hesitating, caught between the familiar fear of change and the exhilarating pull of possibility. "Let us take this step together," she urged him softly, heart open and sincere. "We can guide each other." But the man with the briefcase interrupted, urgency in his voice. "We need to prepare for a response, and quickly. There will be resistance. And not everyone will welcome you." "What are you saying?" Her father snapped, his eyes narrowing as the crowd's energy shifted from hope to anxiety. Marfa's heart raced. What kind of response? What should we expect? The crowd leaned closer again, concerned murmurs rippling like wind through tall grass. The man met her gaze with an intensity that made her stomach flip. "Tension, there will be pushback." The rain began to fall, heavy drops hitting the ground with a rhythmic insistence, washing over the gathered people. Marfa felt the chill seep through their resolve, but she also felt the warmth of emerging unity. "Then we face it together," she declared boldly, "side by side, united in our strength." As voices rallied around her, clinging to that hopeful uncertainty, Marfa couldn't shake the feeling that the true test was just beginning. And then, with thunder rumbling in the distance, that same ominous stranger said, "Just remember, the hardest battles often have the fiercest rewards if you're willing to fight for them." Her heart thudded in her chest. What were they about to step into? What awaited them in the storm? Would they be brave enough to embrace the fight? The storm rolled in, dark clouds coiling above them like a wild beast preparing to strike. The ground was slick beneath their feet, the air charged with the tension of unspoken fears. Marfa could feel her pulse racing, each beat echoing the uncharted path ahead. Their resolve wallowed in the brewing tempest, yet she could still sense a flicker of determination among the crowd. The energy was palpable, serious but electric. "Are you sure about this?" her father whispered, his brow furrowed deeply as he scanned the faces around him. The bravery of the moment pressed heavily on his shoulders, but Marfa could see the conflict swirling in his eyes. "Yes." She pressed her hands against her chest, willing her voice to overflow with conviction. "We have to be brave. Together, we are stronger." Marfa locked her gaze on him, seeking not just his approval, but his solidarity. "I don't like this," he murmured. "The world out there," he gestured toward the looming darkness. It eats people alive. A brave fight is better than sitting in silence, Marfa shot back, a spark ignited within her. She glanced around, seeing fear twisted with newfound hope. This is our story. We're finally telling it. The man with the briefcase stepped closer, his expression unyielding. The truth is, this community is entering unknown waters. You might face hostility. But your collective voice could stir change. You don't get it. A voice from the back called out, a voice steeped in past disillusionment and hurt. What if they don't listen? What if we're just shouting into the void? Marfa felt the weight of that comment seep deep into her chest. And yet, she held her ground, breathing through the discomfort. What if we don't even try? She countered, the words tumbling out with the urgency of a dam about to break. If we hide in fear, nothing changes. What do we have to lose? Everything, her father whispered as despair crossed his features. It pained her to see him so torn, a pillar of strength wavering in the storm. Maybe everything, but we gain our voice, she replied, each word a rallying cry. We gain our dignity. The buzz of emotion ran through the crowd once more. Murmurs of agreement flickered like fireflies in the darkening sky. Each face was a portrait of quiet rebellion, unwilling to remain silent. Their pain and hearts interlaced in a tapestry richer than any policy or promise. The rain fell harder, soaking through their clothes, but there was warmth in their resolve. Marfa felt the cool mist on her cheeks, washing away the doubt. Together, we'll speak. She shouted, her voice rising above the raindrops. Together, we'll fight for our rightful place. As they rallied, her father's grip on her shoulder loosened, and she dared to hope he might join this musical chorus of change. The man with the briefcase observed silently, eyes transfixed on the momentum building before him. Can we commit to this? He finally spoke, his voice tinged with urgency. To share your stories on an open platform where truth can oxygenate your fight? Yes. Marfa declared, their voices merging into a singular roar, echoing against the rain and wind. Suddenly, a blinding flash of lightning split the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. The crowd shuddered but held firm, an amalgamation of fear and ferocity igniting their spirits. But just as they gathered strength, the distant rustle of approaching footsteps filled the air, a sound tainted with an ominous promise. The moment stretched like a taut bowstring, anticipation hanging thick as a cloud. Who is coming? Marfa managed to ask, her heart thumping wildly. Would they face enemies instead of allies? The man with the briefcase glanced over his shoulder, eyes narrowing. Those who would rather silence you, and with those chilling words hanging in the rain-kissed air, Marfa knew they were on the cusp of something monumental. Would they be able to unite their stories, to stand as one against the storm, both the one brewing in the clouds and the one edging toward them? The weight of the unknown pressed in on her like the heavy drops around them. But in the marrow of her bones, she sensed this was only the beginning of her true test. What would come next? Would they be prepared for the battles ahead? The storm's fury intensified, raindrops pelting down like frantic drummers. Marfa scanned the crowd, their faces lit by fear and determination. She felt the weight of their collective hope, a force powerful enough to drive away the darkest shadows. Yet, the footfalls grew closer, echoing like ominous thunder in the distance. Her heart raced as the figure emerged from the shadows, tall, intimidating, and wrapped in a dark coat. Marfa's father stiffened beside her, uncertainty tugging at his features. She could feel his doubt creeping back, the protective instinct rising like a tide. What if they mean to shut us down? He whispered, eyes darting between Marfa and the approaching figure. We can't let fear win, she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. She stepped slightly forward, feeling the surge of adrenaline like a wave crashing against a rocky shore. We're ready. We have to be. The man drew closer, his face obscured by the brim of his hat, but there was no mistaking the fierceness in his stride. Marfa noticed the crowd shifting, whispers rising like wisps of smoke. They were sharing glances, uncertain yet hopeful, caught in the balance of confrontation and resolve. Is this the group that dares to speak? He challenged, his voice slicing through the storm. The crowd instinctively straightened. You think your voices matter? You think you can stir change? Marfa stepped up, emboldened by the moment. Yes. We are not afraid to tell our story. We will not be silenced. Her words erupted with the force of a thunderclap. The man laughed, but it lacked humor. Silenced? Look around you. History isn't kind to dreamers. Marfa felt a sharp pang in her chest. Was this man truly an enemy, or was he merely a product of fear himself? She refused to accept that they were at the mercy of circumstances. Maybe history hasn't been kind, but we're writing a new chapter. We're making our voices heard. Across the crowd, others had begun to gather strength. Heads nodded in agreement. We've endured too long in silence. Shouted a woman who had lost so much. It's time to be seen. Marfa's heart swelled at the unity blooming in the storm. The rain dripped from their clothes, but it was more than just water. They were washing away years of silence, years of regret. Each voice layered on top of the other, building a sound that resonated and filled the air with energy. Then let the storm come. The man shouted defiantly, raising his hand as if to challenge the heavens. Let it rage. You'll see it will do nothing but drown you. Tension crackled as Marfa locked eyes with him. She opened her mouth to speak, but she felt another shift in the air, a low rumble underfoot, a ripple that clawed at her instincts. Something was heading their way, yet she could not tell if it was support or more opposition. But she didn't falter. Even if the storm drowns us, it will water the seeds of change, she declared, her voice ringing clear. And one day, they will bloom. Murmurs surged through the group, powered by hope and belief. A smile tugged at her father's lips, his doubts slowly unraveling like threads of an old tapestry. In that moment, the man stepped back, a semblance of respect flickering in his eyes. You have fire, he admitted, a begrudging acknowledgement. The storm continued its fury, but now, it felt invigorating, like a baptism for their resolve. Ahead, shadows loomed ever larger, and Marfa knew the real battle was yet to come. The air was charged with possibility and fear, a potent mix. Would they be able to hold on to their newfound unity, or would they fall apart under the pressure of what was to come? As the darkness encroached, threatening to consume their moment, Marfa took a deep breath, ready to stand firm. Let them come. She said, her voice unwavering. We'll show them who we are. She glanced back at the crowd. The time for action was here, but would they unite against the storm before them, or would fear pull them apart once more? The horizon crackled with uncertainty, and she realized, deep within her, they were standing at the edge of everything. What awaited them on the other side? The ground beneath them trembled, a palpable energy buzzing through the air. Marfa felt her heart pounding in sync with the distant rumblings. The shadows near the horizon twisted, revealing more figures emerging from the murky darkness. Her resolve wavered for just a moment, but she shook it off. They were ready. They had to be. Stand together. She called out, her voice echoing above the tempest. This is our moment. We are not alone. The crowd rallied behind her, taking in the weight of her words. Each face glimmered with a mixture of fear and defiance. She caught her father's proud nod from the corner of her eye. In an instant, a surge of courage flooded her. She felt the energy shifting. Do not let them break us. A voice rang out, belonging to a man who had lived through struggles she could barely imagine. We're stronger when we're united. We must rise. Marfa turned back to the tall figure who had stood defiantly before them. His presence was almost magnetic, drawing reactions from the crowd. You think you can stand against a storm? He questioned again, a hint of darkness lacing his words. We are the storm. Someone shouted, and the words rippled through the throng like wildfire. The intensity of their united voices surged forward, washing over the man, drowning out his doubts. Isn't that the truth? Marfa stepped forward, locking eyes with him. Every drop in this rain, every echo of thunder is a lullaby for those who have fought. You might think you're powerful, but look around. We are growing stronger. In that moment, the man's smirk faltered, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. Marfa didn't let up. Yes, storms can drown, but they also reshape the land. We don't fear the downpour, we embrace it. Change is on the horizon. Behind her, the crowd began to chant. We are the storm. We are the storm. The rhythm pulsed like a beating heart, fierce and unyielding. Their voices intertwined, transforming the anxiety in the air into hope that sailed through the stormy night, buzzing with potential. The man raised a fist, and the storm's winds whipped through the air more furiously. You think this is just a storm? He shouted back, fists clenched. This is rebellion. And it has its price. Each word he spoke sent shockwaves through Marfa's chest. What was the price of their voices? A thought snaked through her mind, tugging at the threads of her determination. She searched the faces in the crowd. Some had lost homes, families, dreams. This was it, the single moment that could tip the scale. Then let them charge. She cried, fighting against the fear bubbling deep down. We've paid dearly for our silence. We will stop being afraid. Together, we can change this narrative. Within the thunder's roar, she could hear their hearts aligning with hers. Each soul shared a common thread woven with resilience and hope. The storm was merely the beginning. But just as their power mounted, the ground shook violently beneath them. A deep rumble echoed, the kind that called for attention, and all eyes shot toward the horizon. In the distance, something colossal was emerging, spear-like silhouettes cutting through the storm. Get ready! Marfa yelled, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She could see the fear creeping back into the depths of many eyes. Would they hold their ground? Or would the weight of this moment crush them into submission? As the shadows drew closer, the most pressing question hung in the air: could they truly stand against whatever was rushing toward them? Or would their unity be tested to its absolute limits? The shadows loomed closer, their shapes becoming clearer as they sliced through the swirling tempest. Marfa felt the collective heartbeat of the crowd quicken, a mix of anticipation and dread. She held her breath, every soul around her woven together in this fragile moment that could define their fate. What is that? A young woman whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling winds. Marfa strained to see, her heart racing. The silhouettes had sharpened into figures mounted on sleek, ominous beasts, charging forward like phantoms from a nightmare. Stay steady. Marfa called, trying to mask her own rising panic. We've come too far to turn back now. But even she struggled to keep the tremor from her voice. There was fear in the air, palpable and thick, and it threatened to choke their resolve. The leading figure on the beast raised a staff, its tip glowing with an eerie light, illuminating his features. He wore an expression of contempt, eyes narrowed as he studied the assembled crowd. The sharp angle of his jaw, dark hair whipped by the wind, gave him a fierce, predatory air. You think your cries can pierce this storm? He taunted, laughter catching in his throat like a dry breeze. You are nothing but whispers against the roaring tide. Marfa could see her father tense at her side, his hands balling into fists. She felt the heat of his anger rising, and she knew she had to be the voice that calmed it. We're more than whispers. She shouted, throwing her arms wide. We are the voices of those who came before us. We carry their hopes, their dreams. Can you not hear us? The man's laughter faltered slightly. It was enough, a crack in his armor. But it was a fragile victory, and the shadows continued to advance, swirling ominously around them. The crowd began murmuring, their collective energy shifting from fear to determination. Marfa's voice rang clear and steady, cutting through the doubt. Remember why we stand. For every person who dared to dream, for every family torn apart, for the future we refuse to abandon. With every word, her conviction planted roots in the hearts of those before her. Faces lit up, a spark jumping from one to the next, shifting the fear into a steely resolve. Together. She urged, heart racing. We stand as one. We refuse to be silenced. Just as the words sunk in, lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the imposing figures charging toward them. Time to make a choice. The lead man shouted, his voice booming like thunder. Bow down and save yourselves, or face the storm that comes. Marfa took a step forward, feeling the weight of 100 eyes upon her. We choose defiance. We choose each other. The words hung in the air, electric and sharp, awakening a deep-seated strength among the people. They began taking steps forward, shifting their stance in solidarity. But just then, a low rumble rolled through the ground beneath their feet, deeper than any blast of thunder. A scent, raw like heat lightning, filled the air. Marfa could sense it, something immense was coming, and it was not just the men in the shadows. What is happening? Someone cried, confusion sparking through the crowd. Marfa's heart sank, an unsettling feeling coursing through her veins. She scanned the stormy sky, searching for answers in the gathering darkness. In that moment, the question echoed in her mind, louder than thunder: what would they face when the storm finally unleashed its full fury? The answer remained a mystery, one that loomed closer with each beat of her heart. Marfa's heart pounded in her chest as she strained her eyes against the dark horizon. There was an intensity in the air, thick like the charge before a storm, and every person in the crowd felt it. It wasn't just fear, it was a primal instinct, urging them to prepare for what was to come. With the dark figures closing in, Marfa called out to her father, who stood resolute beside her. We need to rally them. Don't let the shadows break our spirit. He nodded, visibly shaking off the grip of fear, ready to join the fight. The shadows dispersed slightly, revealing more riders on their dark steeds, each one draped in tattered cloaks that seemed to absorb the light around them. Despite the chaos, a fierce resolve spread through the crowd. People gripped each other's hands, their connectedness igniting a sense of unity. Marfa could see glimmers of hope in their eyes, a flicker of fire against the darkness. Listen! Marfa shouted, they think they can scare us into submission. But we know our strength. As the lead figure raised his staff again, a surge of energy pulsed through the crowd, each heartbeat echoing Marfa's declaration. With every passing second, that energy transformed from anxious whispers into a roar of defiance. But the ground continued to rumble beneath them, a reminder of the unseen force stalking closer, drawing nearer like an inexorable tide. The lead figure leaned forward in his saddle, dark lips curling into a sinister smile, as if he thrived on their fear. Does it stir your hope, little girl? He jeered, his voice rich with mockery. We come for your resolve, and we shall feast upon it. Hope is stronger than darkness. Marfa shot back, feeling the weight of every person behind her. We are more than your prey. We are the future. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning illuminated the brewing storm, casting a flicker of surreal light across the land. In that moment, Marfa glimpsed something flickering behind the shadows. It was a massive, swirling shape that writhed and coiled against the tumultuous backdrop. What is that? Someone exclaimed, breathless with both fear and awe. Marfa, breath held, squinted against the brilliance illuminating the horizon. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, a creature wrapped in tempest, a being that emanated raw, chaotic energy. Her heart raced. It felt ancient, powerful, like it held the weight of ages in its gaze. The energy around her surged, and for a moment, it was as if everything hung in the balance. Could they withstand both the taunts of the man and the storm at their back? Suddenly, with a deafening roar, the ground split. A fissure opened between Marfa and the army bearing down on them. It swallowed dust and shadows alike, as panic surged through the crowd. They stumbled back, but Marfa remained rooted to the spot, her breath labored as she fought against the urge to flee. "Stand together!" she cried, locking eyes with her father. "We won't let this divide us. No matter what, we face it together." In that moment, the air was electric with uncertainty, yet steely determination washed over the people like a warm tide, reminding them of their shared purpose. But just as the voices surged to a united chant, the creature surged forward, a lightning bolt colliding with reality. The figures on their beasts began to steady themselves. Marfa felt the pulse of fear begin to gather again at the edges of their resolve. What would this being demand of them? What price would they pay to defy what was clearly far darker than they could imagine? She glanced at her father, who met her gaze, eyes fierce and unyielding. "Stay with me," he whispered, holding her hand tight. With that, they knew they wouldn't be alone as they faced whatever this storm had to offer. And in the swirling chaos, one thing became clear: they were standing at the edge of destiny. But the question lingered in the air, thick as a fog, waiting to be answered. What sacrifice would they have to make when faced with the true heart of the storm? As the violent winds whipped around them, Marfa held tight to a vision of their community standing strong in the face of overwhelming odds. She knew in her heart that this battle would reshape their lives, their futures, and perhaps even the very foundation of their town. But even stronger than that was her fierce determination to fight for every dream shared in that rain-soaked gathering. "Together!" she shouted again, her voice ringing clear above the storm. "Together, we will rise!" The crowd echoed her words, a ripple of resistance moving through them like fire. The lead figure narrowed his eyes, a wave of anger washing over him. "You think unity will shield you from the storm? Strength doesn't come from numbers." Marfa stepped closer, her heart pounding with both fear and courage. "But you can't break our spirit. You underestimate the strength of community, the strength of love." In that moment, lightning split the sky again, illuminating the massive creature behind the men, swirling with power and dark energy. Marfa could sense it, a palpable force that radiated oppression and despair. Yet here they stood, a mass of voices, hearts colliding in a bond more powerful than any storm. "We choose to rise." Marfa pressed on, her voice steady, fueled by the fire that now burned within her. She glanced at her father, who stood resolute at her side. His eyes reflected her own belief, a bond shifting from doubt to confidence, and it ignited her even further. Determined, she raised her hand, signaling the crowd. "Let us give voice to our stories. To our pain. To our dreams." One by one, faces lit up in solidarity. Tales of sacrifice, stories of hardships shared, and dreams long deferred poured out like rain falling from darkened skies. Each account was a thread binding them tighter, unbreakable. As they spoke, the storm surged, yet their resolve dared to stand firm against it. Marfa felt energy swell as they spoke, not just for themselves but for every soul that felt lost and unheard. They snapped their fears as though they were chains, shattering silence with their declarations of hope. With each shared story, the creature behind the men writhed in response. Marfa sensed that their words stung, pierced through the shroud of darkness wrapping around it. Whatever malevolent force they had conjured would not tolerate this unification, this loud, defiant uprising. "This is your only warning," the lead figure bellowed, clutching the staff tightly. "Turn back, or face the consequences." But Marfa held her ground, heart beating in rhythm with the pounding rain. "We will face whatever comes. You can't silence us anymore." The earth trembled as the storm roared, the creature seeming to pulse in time with the tumult. But their voices drowned out the storm, enveloping each individual in the strength of their unity. Suddenly a loud crack divided the crowd. The physical fissure that had split the ground widened into more chaos just as the figure on the beast raised the staff high, summoning dark winds howling like banshees across the space between them. "Face your fate," he spat. But the last word hung heavy in the air. It wasn't a call to surrender but an invitation to confront the very thing they had feared all this time. Marfa stepped forward, emboldened by the community behind her. We embrace our fate. Whatever the storm has to offer, we face it together. With those words, the creature let out a spine-chilling roar, as if fluctuating between rage and confusion. The shadows of fear began to peel back like layers from an onion, revealing light creeping into once dark spaces. Now! Marfa shouted, raising her fists in solidarity. For every voice unheard, let us rise together. The crowd surged, arms reaching out, voices intertwining like vines growing stronger as they lit the dark. Amidst this electrifying moment, the energy shifted, the darkness tautened before shattering into a million fragments of light. And just like that, the storm around them shifted. The torrent of rains became a drizzle, as if nature itself acknowledged their undeniable resolve. They had faced the storm, held on to hope, and emerged stronger. Marfa soaked it all in, watching as her father stepped beside her. There was pride in his eyes, a shared understanding that they had crossed the divide between doubt and belief. As the storm faded into the background, they turned to face the men on their mounts. There was no longer an army to fight. Only men who witnessed the unyielding spirit of those who dared to hope. Marfa felt the shift within herself, a transformation that lifted her heart. In that moment, she understood her journey. This was not just a battle for a factory, her family, or her feelings. They were standing for an entire legacy, filled with light and dreams. And the storm had just set the stage for all that lay ahead. Let us rebuild, she said, her voice calm yet firm. Together, we'll build a brighter future. The crowd exploded into cheers, a thunderous applause echoing through the remnants of the storm. And somewhere deep in her spirit, Marfa felt alive. Their fight had birthed a movement, an awakening, a family bound by purpose. As the last vestiges of darkness retreated, they stood as testament to the power of love, determination, and unity. They were ready to rise onto brighter paths, stronger than ever before. The sun broke through at last, illuminating a horizon shimmering with endless possibilities. The journey had transformed them into more than just a community, it had forged a family. And as the crowd dispersed, hope lingered in the air like the sweet scent of rain-soaked earth, full of potential and dreams waiting to take flight. This was just the beginning. Now it's your time to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now if this ending inspired you. Comment your reactions and feelings. We want to hear how this story impacted you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support, and only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait not even one more second to share.